Hello, my friends. Here we are. Chat with Matt. It is the 26th of June. It's the 26th of June 2019. I've lost count of what number it is. I ran out of time as well to go looking for it. But here we are. I'll add it on later. I'm sure it's a good number nonetheless. Here we are. 30 minutes with us to talk about anything. Sister Sicilian, however you're supposed to say that because it's not a real name, has, and I'm not allowed to tell you her real name, although most of you know it, the intrigue of it all, has written in a tricky question. So she thinks, a bit of a hypothetical question. So I may as well start there. Those of you who are joining as we progress, very, very welcome. Hey, Sister Mary, to write in anything that you would like some insight on, or at least my opinion on, because that's all it really is. I don't claim to be sitting on the throne. I don't claim to be the oracle. I'm here to just share from my heart what feels to come out. Anyway, so let's read what Sylvie's written in. Oh my God, I just said her name. Well, if no one else is asking a question, I'll prompt you with a tricky one which raises my curiosity, just as well she's not a cat. Do you feel that all members of Mantara are angelic in nature, or is the angelic vibration coming from the majority? And in this case, are some members of Mantara of another nature? I'm going to keep reading, then I'll come back to talk about various words that have been used in that. In particular, do you feel some members of Mantara could be light being with mostly extraterrestrial experience? I would enjoy a talk on the difference between the nature of a being and what feels like his or her origin. If there are quote unquote home constellations for the soul and or the higher self. And let me try and read that. And as for us as human beings, where does this sensation come of not really belonging here? The difficulty to feel at home here and the feeling that we had most experiences somewhere else that is less dense, and so it's awkward being incarnated on Earth. Okay. So let's just start with the idea of the difference between someone's nature and someone's origin, because Mantara is of angelic origin. Hey, Sister Nishna. So angelic origin means that basically, okay, so the division of angelic sits above where beings are incarnating. Some angelics have not incarnated anywhere. We tend to think of angels as being, incarnated beings, right? Beings who have stayed what you might call closer to God, in that they don't have so much personality. They haven't chosen to go down the route of separating out souls and incarnating onto planes. So they're higher selves, if you like, divisions of God Source Universe, as we all are, who have chosen to stay in their sort of baseline separation. Well, it's not really the baseline separation. So if you think of Source as the combination of all of us, and this is only my opinion, by the way, I don't claim to be dictating the law or the rule. You can all have your own opinions, and that is completely fine by me. But as soon as I've been asked, I will share my opinions and beliefs on this. So from Source separating out, it separates out into various divisions. Light and dark is a pretty fundamental one that happens right up near the top there. Source separates into a light aspect and a dark aspect. The basic duality is formed. Alpha and omega separate out, masculine and feminine, and these are overriding natures that are there. And of course, the alpha omega division happens in multiple ways, multiple times down the chain, down the tree, if you like. Anyway, at some stage up there near the top, there are divisions made of origin, if you like, although origin is always source, but angelic, fairy, reptilian, right, various subsets. And of course those names are like totally freaking triggering and not very accurate a lot of the time. Like, you know, the division of what we might call reptilian origin is not nearly, you know, they're not evil beings. They're not at all. Many of the ascended masters are of reptilian nature. Of course, there is a subset of reptilian nature that has played an interesting role here on this planet and elsewhere in the cosmos. But that's, you know, you can't paint the whole division with the same brush. There's also divisions into various categories of vibration or division of source that are playing roles in the vegetation, in the roles in the mineral kingdom as well, tending not to be as complex structures of experience, right? They're having a very simple experience of beingness, which is what we're all having, right? An experience of beingness. But some aspects of source choose to have the experience of beingness as a I don't understand what you have said there, Baxter. Is that someone else's name that you have tagged? I'm not sure. But anyway, I need more clarification if that was a question. And they're having more simple experiences of beingness, as we all are. We're all having an experience of beingness. So, coming back to the idea of angelic and then how that relates to quote-unquote extraterrestrial, angelic happens above extraterrestrial. Some aspects, you know, so we all, those of us who are of angelic origin, which I feel that I am, right? But I'm not an angel anymore. My higher self's not an angel because my higher self chose to, you could say, fall or drop down, but basically choose to step out of being just angelic in the pure sense and to add to that angelic nature experience of manifestation, an experience of incarnation. And of course that incarnation is happening in multiple ways. My higher self has sent souls out, multiple souls out, into different dimensions to have experience, to gather this wisdom that helps it to evolve. Okay, so when you start talking about could Mantara be beings of, you know, extraterrestrial experience, of course they are. You know, many of the beings in Mantara are ascended masters as well, from both extraterrestrial lifetimes and human lifetimes, understanding that you have been around and I have been around and all of us have been around as an individuation from source for an infinite amount of time, because time can't really be measured over these periods, but we've all had experiences in many, many, many different realms, many different dimensions, many different quote-unquote constellations. If you think of it, it's, you know, it's a little bit 3D when we start talking about planets, and because people think that it's over there, it's that little dot in the sky and that's where I'm from, but that is kind of an illusion and a delusion, really, because when we start talking about the places, it's not so much a 3D creation, right? We are here in physical form. When you're a light being, you understand, of course, that it's not so physical and, right, that's, you know, 26,000 light years away and that's where I'm from, that's Sirius, that's this, right? Yeah, you might have a alignment with the vibration of Sirius, but you must understand that Sirius is not a location. Much the same as the Earth plane is not a location. These ideas that we have physical space, again, is an illusion that is a construct of the 3D world that we are existing in right now. In reality, there's no time and there's no space. It's all just now. And I know our minds can't cope with that and we can't understand that, so it's fine not to be able to understand and cope with that. So anyway, coming back to Mantara are beings that are of angelic origin. That's it. they have a huge range of experience past that initial division or origin or alignment. They're aligned with the angelic realm. That doesn't mean much ultimately. Some of them are still very, very angelic. Some of them are very, very etheric. Some of them are without much personality, but they have a vibration that is quote unquote useful. And then others of them have a multitude of experience, including right the way through to ascended masters and cosmic masters. So, and understand that Mantara is not Mantara to everyone. Mantara is a big group of beings who are working with many, many here on the planet, and they don't use the name Mantara with everyone else. So don't get caught up in, I'm the only one who works with Mantara, because that is complete rubbish. Mantara is the name they gave me because it suited me, and it was a name that I aligned with and felt comfortable with. And as they explained to me very early on, if they were to go by the same name with everyone, it would cause mass confusion, because they tell different people different things depending on what that person needs. Understanding that spirit doesn't talk in terms of quote unquote what we consider truth. Spirit works to achieve outcomes that are going to serve, and so they direct or influence people in different ways to get the outcome that's best going to serve those people. And as soon as they start using the same name, us as humans start getting very, very contracted around, they said this to me and this to you, which some of us must be wrong here. You're not hearing them properly. You're not really connecting into the true Mantara. My Mantara is the true Mantara. You're right. All of that bullshit starts happening because humans do not understand the way that spirit works. So going on with your question, hopefully that's sort of helped to unwind that. I would enjoy a talk on the difference between the nature of being and what feels like his or her origin. So this idea of home constellations, for those of you, I feel actually very, very at home here on Earth, because I've been here for a relatively long time in terms of experience. And, anyway, I'm not going to get too caught up in that, in my particular journey. But the point is, just imagine you were born somewhere and you spent the first 4 years of your life living there. And then you moved, your parents moved and took you to a different country, and you spent the next 16 years living there in that home. You were brought up in the same home from the age of 4 to 20 before you left home. Now, what do you call home now that you are 30, 10 years later, and you are out flatting on your own, or you've just met your husband or whatever, and you want to go home? Do you go to the place where you spent the first 4 years of your life, or the place where you spent 16 years of your life? Which one is home, right? So the point is to understand that home is wherever we choose it to be. Some people, right, have moved many, many more times than just 2, and so it's very hard for them to know exactly where home is, but they may have a place, one of those places where they lived, where they feel a greater affinity to, and they enjoy going there, and they call it home. So the point is, we've all gone through many different experiences on many different dimensions and realms through the infinite amount of time that we have been separated from Source. Hundreds of millions of years if you want to try and put a time to it, right? But a time doesn't really exist, so it's kind of a pointless exercise. But right, many of us get very contracted with this idea. We think 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was walking this earth, this time, was a long time ago, but it's just nothing. It's just a blink in the eye, right? We're going through these 25,000 year cycles of light and dark, and they are just nothing. I personally believe I've been on this planet for over 10 million years in various forms, right? How many 25,000 year cycles goes into 10 million, right? A lot. 440 or 400, I can't count, right? No, I still can't count. I can't decide whether it's 400 or 40, but it's a lot. Anyway, a lot of cycles. Hey, Sister Melita. Hey, Sister Patricia. It's a lot of cycles. The point is, but that's only a blink in the eye, right? I've been in many other dimensions previous to that. Some people
who are walking on this planet today have only been here for a very short amount of time. One or two they've only born onto this planet a couple of times. And so it's very, very hard for them to feel acclimated to this vibration. And so that they consider home somewhere else. And that's fine. But that place that they consider home is generally the place that they just spent the last period of time, whether that was several hundred or several million years, but just a blink in the eye to how long they have been individuated from source. So basically our soul, and it is a soul calling more than a higher self calling, right? The higher self is not nearly as, in my opinion, not nearly as contracted around home. Higher self is more likely to consider home the higher up split, whether it's angelic or fairy or reptilian or draconian or whatever, right? They are linked in to that degree because the higher self doesn't go into the dimension that it sends souls, right? So the higher self creates souls, multiple souls generally, and they have experiences on different dimensions at the same time. The higher self is gathering information up from all of those different sources. So higher self is usually comfortable anywhere or nowhere, and it's usually a soul calling that is called back to a place where a soul had particularly good memories or influential memories. Anyway, maybe they're not good, but they're influential. So generally what happens as we evolve, we start losing this concept of home because we start aligning more and more with the higher self, and we start moving more and more into unity consciousness in a way. We start losing this connection with individual experience and start allowing it all to become much, much more softer. We become much more open to the reality of how it's all functioned. And it's not right or wrong to not feel at home here on Earth, by the way, nor is it not wrong to feel drawn somewhere else and to have alliances or allegiances somewhere else that you might call extraterrestrial, which is a really weird term. We're all extraterrestrial. We all have experience off planet. But right now, this personality self is terrestrial. The only part of me that's terrestrial is my personality that is here walking on the planet, a choice that I've made. I am, by nature, extraterrestrial. I exist as nature in many, many dimensions at once. So, as for most things, it comes down to the perspective that we're holding. It comes down to the relativity that we're bringing to any inquiry, what we're identifying with. What we identify with is a choice that we can manipulate quite easily if we make that choice to choose to be more expansive. Of course, it does require a level of what's the right word to use here? Disconnection, right? A level of awareness that helps us to disconnect, to be more expansive than just the human experience, because the human experience is a considerably consuming one. It's very easy to get sucked into it. It's very easy to get lost in it. It's very easy to become enamored by the human experience and the intensity of the emotion that we feel here as human, and the intensity of the thought patterns that run through our mind as human. And it's very, very easy to start completely aligning with the delusion that this is all I am. Very easy, and not wrong that we do it. It does help us to have interesting experiences, but we all are at choice at some stage as we evolve to start seeing ourselves as more expansive and to start weakening that delusion such that we spend time with a greater awareness of who we are and how we can function and what we can do as a bigger being, not just stuck here physical form with a mentality and an emotionality. Anyway, so ultimately all of that dialogue is interesting, but
quite potentially distracting from what you're really here to do. Having an understanding that you're drawn different places, of course, is helpful. Having an understanding that you're much bigger than you are is also very, very helpful when it comes to dealing with discomfort and, quote unquote challenges. But ultimately it comes down to how you choose to cope in the moment with whatever's arising in your experience. And so ultimately that's what Mantara is here to help people with, to be much more empowered, right? Not with all of this blah blah knowledge about extraterrestrial and origin, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. You will understand everything in time as you have experiences, lucid experiences, meditative experiences, dream state experiences that help that information arrive in your consciousness. But the point is not to go looking for information, thinking that information will set you free. The point is to set up practices and ways of being here in the moment, day to day, breath to breath, that allow you to expand into that freedom. It's about breathing. It's about remembering that you are at choice and making empowered choice in the moment to act in a way that's more aligned with your heart, with your intuitive knowing, with your instinctive beingness, rather than getting caught up in trying to do things mentally, right? Rather than trying to get things right, rather than trying to work things out, trying to follow a whole conglomeration of rule-based indoctrination that you've picked up from all sorts of sources throughout all sorts of different times in this lifetime, different things that you've been subjected to. Of course, having past life influence come washing through in the way of energetic motivation or energetic stimulation, feelings arising, resistances arising, fears, doubts arising from leftover trauma that's still in your field. So understanding that all of that's happening, but ultimately what it comes down to is, what do you choose right now? What do you choose to align with? How much can you choose to relax into that alignment? And how can you work your way forward in an empowered but relaxed way, right? How can you trust yourself as yourself as the being, to make a good choice right now and then to act on it in an empowered and confident way? Because that's where life is, right? It's right now, the actions that you're choosing to take. And most of us are hamstrung or severely limited by this idea that we don't trust ourselves, that we get the feeling to do things and then our mind kicks in with all of the potential ways that could go wrong, and we start looping around in fears and doubts, and we don't make a decision at all, and we're basically wasting our life away. And we're not evolving very quickly as long as we allow ourselves to stay in that loop. So it's about breathing in a vibration that serves you, breathing into your confidence, breathing into your strength, breathing into yourself with a capital S, and then as you exhale, relaxing out of the influence of what you are feeling. Don't expect the fears and the doubts to just disappear, because they won't. They'll come up stronger than ever. But you are at choice as to whether you allow those fears and those doubts that may be coming up more and more intensely in your field, right? You're feeling it, you're experiencing it, but ultimately it's just there for you to step past. And the more gracefully or more confidently you step past those fears and the doubts, the more that you set yourself free from the influence of various little bits of energy that are left over in your field from past life, that are what we call fear and doubt, right? The resistance and the limitations and all of that stuff. Hey, Sister Deb. So, anyone else got a question? That was a big question on, origins and home constellations, for example. The process is ongoing, Just yesterday I triggered myself massively into my own low self-worth stuff, because I was basically creating content about self-worth. I made a very strong intention and was taking action towards, really unraveling low self-worth and not good enough energies, and of course brought all of that to the surface and felt
incredibly not good enough and not worthy in what I was doing, which is rather ironic because I was creating a video teaching as part of my new course on low self-worth. right, so there I am choosing to show up. Yeah, we're here for, sorry Mary, yes, we are here for our soul's growth and therefore our higher self's growth. Understanding that both play out. And we're here for our personality's growth as well. So personality, is an important part of soul, which flows back into higher self. So that is true. So yesterday I basically had to, practice a lot of my own stuff as I triggered myself quite horrendously with that low self-worth coming to the surface as I was trying to create a video on it, and I ended up out there on the rebounder breathing and chanting light language for myself. Goodness knows what the neighbors thought, but it doesn't really matter. But that's the process. We have to be willing to move through the process as best we can, and we have to be willing to experience discomfort as we do so. It's an ongoing process. There's layers and layers to this stuff. It's not bad or wrong. We don't need to measure how far we've come by whether we get triggered or not, because it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, are you living a beneficial life? Are you here, stepping further and further into your freedom and your empowered beingness? Are you here expressing yourself and living your life? That's all that really matters. And we just need to keep wading through the process as we do so, and be willing to have uncomfortable experiences and not to make ourselves wrong or less than because we're having those experiences. It's a matter of, as John, the builder I used to work for, told me very early on as I was, starting to work as a builder, we all make mistakes, Matt. It's how you recover that counts. So it's not to beat yourself up when you make a mistake. It's to draw yourself together and work out how you're going to recover from the mistake that you've realized that you've made, quote unquote. And mistakes, of course, are, just an opinion, just a perception. We all have interesting outcomes that were unforeseen or unintentional, right? An unintentional outcome we tend to call a mistake, but really it's all happening for us. So, Deborah, then what's the topic? The topic was angelic origin and how that relates with extraterrestrial type experience, but it doesn't really matter because we've moved on. I've been experiencing what they call kundalini rashes. Not trying to get into titles here. It's been very difficult. Yeah, it is difficult, Deb, right? So there is a lot of energetic awakening occurring. There's a lot of upgrading and up-leveling occurring, and it's uncomfortable, and it's very easy for our personality self to quote unquote freak out and go into the wrongness of what we're experiencing when we feel sensations that are quote unquote not normal and uncomfortable, what we classify as uncomfortable or even painful. And we have trouble functioning. We make that very, very wrong when we don't seem to function as we used to and as we think we should. But the process of evolution is definitely an interesting experience, and we are bound to go through it much more effectively if we choose to bring allowance into the experiences that we're having. I too have been having some rather interesting, light-headed, I'll just use that term to try and describe an experience where you don't feel very grounded at all, very much in your body at all, and it comes on very quickly and can take you by surprise, right? You can just be doing something in the kitchen, in the supermarket. I try and hold intention that higher self is monitoring this so that it doesn't happen when I'm doing something particularly dangerous like operating a chainsaw or driving a car. But basically, sensations that you could say, well, that's low blood pressure, or that's this, or that's high blood pressure. I don't know. Everyone would have a different opinion of what it is. But basically, you feel that your consciousness is not in your body. And it's a very, can be a very concerning experience if you choose to get concerned about that stuff. It certainly doesn't feel very
safe a lot of the time. Yeah, well, not having coffee is not a bad thing, Deb. Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. And so, depending on the form of exercise, overstimulating is again a judgment that you're having. You're making it wrong, that you're basically trying to do things that prevent this experience from happening. And I'm here to tell you, stop trying to prevent the experience from happening. Just find allowance for the experience, because the experience is not wrong. That's the point. And Mary just wrote in, this is the energies that frighten me, Matt. And so the experience of fear arising, again, is not a bad thing, Mary. The experience of fear arising is actually your process of purification, and thus your process of transformation. So understand that this frightens me, you make that as a wrongness, but from where I'm sitting, something frightening you is fantastic, because it's basically what you mean by that is that basically triggers fear to arise from within you that needs to release out of your field. So that experience of getting frightened is actually your process of growth. It's not a wrongness. And exactly the same with Deb. The experience of having a kundalini rush is not a wrongness, and it doesn't need to be fixed. You don't need to start doing things so that it doesn't happen. Embrace it. It's part of your transformation. It's part of your enlightenment. It's part of your ascension. So don't make it wrong. The panic attacks are arising because you're making it wrong. Of course, the nervous system is being stimulated, but you are perpetuating that stimulation into greater and greater degrees of anxiety by feeling that the whole thing is wrong, that you are feeling so out of your body and so disconnected. And of course, your mind has pushed the big red panic button. So that anxious loop is started, but really all that's required for you is to have awareness that what's happening is okay, and to choose to do practices that help to calm your nervous system back down, which basically is deep breathing, right? Deep, slow, rhythmic breathing. That's all that's really required. Hey, thanks, Anne. I missed out what Mary said. I can't seem to keep from focusing on it. I feel I keep bringing it back. Yeah. And it's very normal, Mary. So also bring in allowance for that, right? Kyle Cease does this thing where when people say, this and this and this, and he says, and they have to say, I love that, and I love that, right? So when you say, I can't seem to keep from focusing on it, and I feel I keep bringing it back, and I love that, right? Not I love that in I appreciate it and I want that to keep happening. I love that in that quiet mode, come back. I love that in that I'm bringing compassion and allowance to that experience. My personality self is freaking out right now, but you, Mary, are bigger than your personality self. So the more that you align with the self that is witnessing your personality, I've sort of run out of time here, but the more that you can align with the more expansive nature of you and witness your personality self freaking out, that actually helps to disconnect the energy out of the freak out that the personality's having, and it relaxes, right? You bring a more expansive perspective to the situation. You look at your personality and go, oh my God, poor personality's freaking out. In that moment where you have disconnected out of the freak out yourself, you've withdrawn your energy and you call it for what it is, everything settles down, right? Not perfectly, not that it all just disappears, but you create a separation from yourself with a big S and the experience. You stop being the experience and start having the experience, which allows you to take the importance out of the experience and allows you to calm your nervous system and to create some space, which allows evolution to occur. And yes, exactly, you wrote in, could it be that the body-mind has not been habituated to it? Exactly. Your body-mind has been habituated to staying in stress because that's how we've been trained. And not just in this lifetime, we have to understand what's happened to us in past lifetime where we've basically been
implanted and indoctrinated with fear-based thoughts about ourselves not being good enough and not being right. And so the minute something changes, this idea that we've done something wrong arises in us, because that's what we were implanted with by dark beings in previous lifetimes to disempower us from standing in the light in this lifetime. So, and other lifetimes, but we're dealing with it right now. So this is the point. You have the ability to overcome all of that, right? I don't tell you that so that you feel lost and hopeless and angry with the dark beings. They were doing what they were doing from their heart, basically, right? Their sense of what was best based on their understanding of the world, and we're doing what we feel is best from our sense of self. Yeah, so understand, so Mary just wrote in, it seems the nervous system is afraid to calm down lest something bad will happen. Of course, that's the only reason the nervous system gets wound up anyway, is to try and stay on guard about something bad happening. But you need to talk to yourself as the adult, Mary, the higher self, above this personality, nervous system freak out, and remind yourself that nothing bad is going to happen. And calming down is not going to change whether something bad happens or not. Right? In actual fact, it will help stop bad things from happening, because when you are stressed and contracted and focused on something bad might happen, you are actually inviting it into your life, and it's a self-perpetuating prophecy a lot of the time. So the more that you can calm yourself down and relax, the better your life will be. It's as simple as that. So, these bullshit stories that your nervous system mind is telling yourself that you can't calm down because something bad might happen is actually perpetuating your suffering. You have the insight and the wisdom to know that, and to choose to bring awareness to that, and then to choose to act on it, and to take definite action to calm yourself down. Stop, drop, and breathe. Stop, drop, and put a light language meditation on, or some other healer's stuff to help calm your nervous system, to help kick you out of the stress response. Go to bed, do some meditation. There are lots of things you can do to help you kick out of that perpetuation of the stress response when it starts arising. But you have to take action. You have to choose to act against your habitual habit. And that's not easy, but it's also achievable. Not easy, but still achievable. And that's it. If, we all have to step through what's not easy if we want things to change in an empowered way. If you want to keep going on with your old habits, then you will stay in the perpetuation of the past, and you will keep suffering in the ways that you've suffered before. It's a choice. It's a choice. Yeah, Qigong really helps. So you just have to do it, Mary. You've got the tools. That's the point, right? You are not lacking the tools or the wisdom or the knowledge or the ability. It's just a matter of you putting it all together and doing it when it counts, cutting out of the stress response, cutting out of the hypervigilance, allowing your nervous system to relax so that these fears can release out of your field and everything can shift in an empowered way. It's not all peaches and cream, as I was just describing. I, wound myself up yesterday with vibrations that were arising as I choose to step forward into a more expansive version of myself. It's an ongoing practice. We just get better at dealing with it. What for me was a half-hour freak out could have potentially been in the past, 2 weeks of absolute freaking misery. That's the point. Yeah, breath work works really well, Pat. I find it's the easiest thing to do because you can do it no matter what you're doing. That's it, my friends. I'm well over time now. 10 minutes over. Much love to you all. That was Chat with Matt. I will speak to you again next week. Bye for now. Next week it is going to be later. I have to teach yoga for the next 4 weeks in the morning. So Chat with Matt is going to be 3 hours later than it was today. 3 hours later. Sorry to my friends in Europe. I know that's very late. But it's always there on replay, and it's always great. And you can always write in a question or a request ahead of time. I put a post up on this page, the Mantara page, generally about 12 hours, 10 to 12 to 15 hours before we come on live. So there's plenty of time to go there and write in a request, and then we can talk to that subject. Or you're also very welcome to come on live and stimulate us as we go. But starting next week, for the next 4 weeks, it will be 12 noon here in New Zealand. That will be 7 p.m. Central Time and friggin' late in Europe. I don't even want to tell you what time it is in Europe, but yeah, 1, 2 a.m. So I apologize for that, but that's what it is because I have to teach yoga. Marie is going to Thailand to deliver a yoga retreat, and then she's going on to Vietnam to scope out places for the retreat for next year, 2020. So that's what's happening. I'm here alone, well, here with the kids and the animals and everything else and the yoga classes. Anyway, my friends, much love. I will speak to you again then. Bye for now. Bye-bye. And the finish button didn't work.